Good morning. I've got to make sure I don't wander this part of the stage because the cameraman will shout at me. So I'm holding all of you accountable for making sure that doesn't happen. This talk will have no mention of the Terminator, and it'll have no mention of AI taking your roles. But I'm hopefully going to give you enough today for you to go back to work on Monday and change the world. This is quite simply the most important talk I will ever give in my life. And you can all go back to work on Monday and change the world. So this is the agenda. I'm not going to read that out, you can read, but what I will say is I will focus on the building credibility. I'm going to take about 5-10 minutes to try and build a bit of credibility in the room. Why? Because that third point, I'm going to predict the future. And in order to do that, I need to build a little bit of credibility in the room. There's a big caveat there. You can read that. I'm no AI expert. I'm not even a testing expert. I've only been doing it for 27 years. But I don't see myself as an expert. I see myself as a student. And these are my own views. Why? Because no one is crazy enough to think of the stuff I'm just about to take you through. If anybody knows Sir Ken Robinson, if you haven't seen his TED Talk about schools killing creativity, I strongly recommend you go and watch it. But I am going to try and be original. And there's a chance that I'm going to be wrong. So I'm going to predict the future, but I'm going to build some credibility first. I'm going to do that by showing you the cutting edge technology I've worked on in my 27 years. I'm going to start with MMS. So you might be thinking, why on earth is MMS a tech disruptor? Well, when I worked on it in 2002, everybody was working on desktop solutions. Along came mobile phones, and we were testing on emulators, simulators, and hardware. So the whole mindset had to change. However, the reason this is a tech disruptor is the essence of MMS. I mean, no one uses MMS anymore, do they? I think it's dead. However, the essence, the concept, was one humanoid using a mobile phone could send a picture, a video, or a sound to another humanoid. Now, if you move forward to today's world, what does that look like? Well, it's different technology, but it's those platforms. That's why MMS was a cutting-edge technology at the time. And as mentioned in the introduction, 2003, I was very lucky to work on the world's touchscreen smartphone. And here it is. If you've seen the BlackBerry documentary, BlackBerry was not the first smartphone. This was the Sony Ericsson P800. And it still works. 23 years on, it still boots up. And you couldn't use your finger. You had to use a little dibber on the side to dib the screen. And if you want to come and see that afterwards, I'll happily share it, but don't take it home. And I think we can all agree that the touchscreen smartphone is definitely a tech disruptor. Does anybody in this room have a mobile phone that still has buttons? Oh my God, there are some hands that have gone up. Okay, oh my God. I was expecting 0 hands to go up there. Okay, so I think we're all agreed that is definitely a tech disruptor, and I was lucky enough to work on that in 2003. And 2005, I was lucky enough to work on the world's first smartwatch. There was only, someone's holding the phone up now, oh my God, it's a brick. 2005, I was lucky enough to work on the world's first smartwatch. Now, yes, it's on my wrist, and it sits in the family safe. It doesn't come out very often. There was only 10 made. There wasn't much it could do, but you could answer or reject phone calls, you could read your text messages, you could control your music on it. 2005, it felt like magic. When I used to pull that out in the pub and show people, they were gobsmacked, along with the touchscreen smartphone that I used to show them. So I mean, who in the room now has a smartwatch? And there's my proof. It's definitely mainstream, and it was definitely a tech disruptor. And this picture here, on your left, you'll see what's known as progressive download. And on the right is digital rights management. I worked on both in 2007 separately. Little did I know that they would combine to create streaming. So I worked on the foundations of that. The irony of this slide, DRM is there to protect media. In 2000, I was using Pirate Bay to download music illegally. So 7 years later, I'm working on technology against the stuff that I was actually doing in my own time. Some would say that makes you a good tester. And 2009, I was lucky enough to work at PlayStation. I was head of European test operations. And there's 4 technologies that I worked on. So virtual reality, augmented reality, the PlayStation Move, which was rubbish, and the 3D gaming, which was also rubbish. However, it was cutting-edge technology. And what this has done is it's allowed me to build a gut feeling as to what the future might look like. As well as working on cutting-edge technology, I worked on cutting-edge trends in the testing community. So, 1999, I wrote my first test automation script using Windrunner. Did anybody use that? Oh my God, there's a couple of us. Some of you probably weren't even born then. Okay. 2006, I introduced combinatorial testing into my test teams and exploratory testing. Now, everybody knows exploratory testing now, but in 2006, I didn't even know it was called exploratory testing. I called it something different, and I'm not going to tell you what it was because it was politically incorrect at the time, and we live in a different world now. But this was cutting-edge methodologies. 2008 to 2016, I introduced Agile into 3 companies. Agile was created by engineers for engineers. And I was lucky enough to put in Agile into 3 companies from the ground up. 2012, I introduced the 10-minute test plan, which I stole from a person called James Whittaker in 2011. Now, I hate documentation, but I do understand we need it. So the 10-minute test plan was introduced to me in 2011, and it solved the problem. I didn't want to write 25-page test plans. So I introduced the 10-minute test plan into every company I've been to. And in 2014, I changed the name of my QA team to QE. Some people still think this is a new trend. It's been around for decades. And I think I was one of the first to do it. And I also changed the makeup of the QAs and QEs that worked for me. I insist, absolutely insist, that all my QEs are capable of doing exploratory testing and automation. And that's something I still insist on right up till today. And we're getting close to the close of the trend. So 2016, I introduced the quality coach into the very group. That failed because the company wasn't ready for it. They didn't have the mindset or the culture for it, but I gave it a go. And in 2016, this is a slide from the BBC Communities of Practice. And glue work is something that's, the saying now has come to life in the testing community. But in 2016, I stood in front of the BBC COP with this slide saying, testers do glue work. They do work that isn't on any job description. They keep the team together. If you go to any Scrum Master, delivery manager, project manager, they'll always say the testers do stuff that's not written in the job description. So you can see that I've worked on some great technology, and I've tried to be on the front foot with trends and methodologies. And when I did all this, I had no idea that I was making history, a little player in making history. And when I say I worked on all those technologies, I didn't invent them, just to be clear. But I did play a tiny, tiny part in getting them into your pockets, on your wrists, and into your homes. And I had no idea that I was part of history. But I think now we do know that we are living through history with the introduction of AI. And with coronavirus in the last 5 years, I think it's safe to say we all know that we are living through history. But my conclusion of working on all this is the same as yours. You all know this. With AI, you can run, but you can't hide. It's here to stay. And I do love this quote from Arthur C. Clarke. If you don't know Arthur C. Clarke, go onto YouTube, put his name in. He's done a video in 1967 where he predicts the future. And most of it's come true. He also wrote Space Odyssey 2001. He was way ahead of his time. And this is why AI is here. It feels like magic. All that cutting edge technology, the smartphone, the watch, watch, whenever I pulled it out and showed people, they said it felt like magic. Alexa, when Alexa came out, it felt like magic. And the barriers to entry with Alexa were minimal. That's why it's in probably 60% of homes in the UK. ChatGPT, Gen AI, exactly the same. Barriers to entry removed. That's why it's here to stay. So let's get on with the disaster. And I just want to remind you, I don't want this to happen, but I need your help to make sure it doesn't happen. If it happens, it's going to be far bigger than this, I'm telling you. I don't know exactly what it'll be, but I just think there's something that's going to happen that means the humanoids on this planet are going to have to reboot their thinking. So what's going to cause the disaster? Well, these are a few sort of generic statements. The top one is absolutely key. We will put more code live in the next 5 years than we've ever done before. It's a fact. I don't think anybody in this room can argue against that. With putting code live, or putting more code live, the risk is going to go through the roof. And that's why I think quality is going to play a real key part going forward. If we allow agents to automate all of our processes, that could cause the disaster. Putting more code live, automating more of our processes, putting the agents in charge of decision making could cause the disaster. And I think if we get to the point where we trust AI explicitly, that could cause the disaster. So, are we getting to that point? I think we're all smart enough to know AI can be wrong and it hallucinates. I think we all know that. But CEOs don't. They're the ones saying we've got to use AI more. They're the ones trying to make us run before we can sprint. Why? Because they're chasing the pound. And humans, right, us, we built AI, we put it live, we're changing it. So will we cause the disaster? 100% we will. It will not be AI's fault, it'll be us. And the one last point, really important. When we build code, when we haven't handcraft code, we build a tacit knowledge, a really deep knowledge. And I think we're going to lose that. As we go to Claude and say to Claude, generate our code, and we copy and paste it, put it live, we're losing that deep knowledge. And there is a risk when things go wrong, we won't have that deep knowledge of the code, and therefore, we won't know how to fix the problem. And if this is a key disaster, and I'm hoping it's not, but if it is, we won't know how to fix it. So what's going to accelerate us? None of this is about testing. None of this is about code. This is about humans. Look at the top one, capitalism, chasing the pound. Ethical behaviors. So I know we have some service providers in this room. I think some service providers could become unethical as they chase the pound or the dollar or the euro. Is that all service providers? No, but I know this is already happening. I know some service providers are charging me for work that's been done by AI instead of their engineer. That's unethical. If they were transparent, I wouldn't mind, but they're not. And there's that pressure, the human habits wanting to sprint, the taking away the fail-safe. But the bottom point's really important. I think a lack of governance, caution, care, and quality is going to accelerate us. Right, so the next slide, you're going to have to bear with me. It's a horrible slide. I don't like it, but I didn't know how to change it, and I didn't want to put it into ChatGPT and say, change this slide for me, because then you lose a little bit of Leigh Rathbone. But the next slide is a timeline, and it's a volatile timeline of trends in tech in the last 27 years. And there's a reason I want to show you this, because I then want to predict the future trends. So please bear with me as you see this horrible slide. But if this tech timeline, I'm going to zoom in, by the way, if this was a TV series, it would equate to an episode of Game of Thrones. Let me talk you through it. 1999 saw the emergence of test teams, big test teams. Why? Y2K. Loads of companies spun up big teams, loads of testers were introduced to the industry. We found bugs, we were a success, so we stayed. The year 2000, project management offices were formed. 2001, Agile was born but was in its infancy. 2008, engineers and engineering became front and center of transformational change as we rolled out Agile. And then you're going to start seeing some themes that you might have heard before. 2011, testing is dead. I was in the room when James Whittaker said that. And although he said testing is dead, what he actually meant was, if you do not stay relevant and up to date with skills, there's a chance your company will get rid of you. I strongly believe in that. But that message went all over Twitter, all over LinkedIn, and actually CEOs saw it, got rid of testers. Unbelievable. 2011 to 2016, engineers pulled out of Agile because they got excited by the cloud. Engineers love tech, and along came a load of new tech. So we left Agile, we left a void, and we moved into tech. 2015, the same message again, testing is dead. Why? The cloud has all this tooling. We're not going to need testers, they can go home. That was the messaging I heard. And it was rife. It was all over LinkedIn. And it was actually some heads of engineering got rid of test teams because they actually thought this was true. 2015, the Scrum, I kill off a lot of roles in this slide, don't I? 2015, the Scrum Master role started to die. Why? CEOs don't like the term. They like the term delivery manager because they deliver. But they didn't like the Scrum Master role because they protect the team. So we've seen the demise of the Scrum Master role. 2015, 2020, the death of the death of Agile. And I do believe, I was saying this in this period, and I was going up on stage and saying, I think Agile's dying because it's losing its essence. Why? Because delivery and product owners seized control of Agile and they've changed it into a project management methodology. And then again, we're seeing testing is dead in 2019. Why? The word fungibility. Some people thought engineers could do everything, as in developers. We didn't need testers. That's what fungibility means. It means you can do everything. And there's a reoccurring theme, isn't there? Agile becomes a project management methodology. And 2020, the death of the Agile purists. So the Agile purist is an anti-pattern, isn't it? They kept saying Agile must be done in a certain way. And yet Agile was all about having an open mind. And they were showing a closed mind. It's got to be done this way. And the Agile purists are dead now. And then 2022, we're all dead. All the crafts, all the roles, gone. Because ChatGPT launches. And lo and behold, that should say November 2025, we're all still here. All the crafts are still here. So what's the next trend? What's going to be the next couple of lines on this slide? Well, let's find out. I think it's these four things. And I've copyrighted this, so if you use this, you've got to pay me. So, governance, caution, care, and quality. Those are going to be the four trends. That's what I want you to take back to work on Monday. Let's dive into them. Before we do, I need to sort of relay my story with governance. Because as soon as you mention governance, some people pull a face. And I totally get it, because I've always pulled a face until recently with governance. Why? Well, this is my sister and my brother. They brought me up, and they were punks. If you don't know what punks were or are, around about 1970, 1980, it was a group of people who were anti-establishment. They were rebels. They dressed differently. They were a tight-knit community. And this was my brother and my sister, and they raised me. So I have that punk mentality in me. And the picture bottom left is a picture of my wall in my study of the Sex Pistols, which is a punk band from 1970, and I have blocked out the rude word just in case. Okay, so in the workplace, what did that look like? I always got branded as a maverick, a rebel. So those Japanese words there, they're three different versions of the word rebel. I actually put the middle one on a T-shirt when I went over to Japan, when I worked for PlayStation, and I got asked to go home and change my T-shirt because rebel in Japan is not acceptable. Know your audience and know your cultures. But this was me. I was definitely always on the front foot, always doing things differently, and I didn't want anyone to get in my way. This was Liverpool Tester Gathering, which I spun up in 2015. And I ran it like a punk band. It was rebellious, it was anti-establishment, it went against all the patterns of meetups, and it was a success. We had about 120 people at one point. So it was a good attendance for a city with no technology in it. And in fact, Godel Technologies, who are one of our sponsors, actually sponsored one of our events in 2016. So if there is anybody from Godel in the room, please come and see me. But we lost money on every single meetup that we ran. It was so popular, we couldn't cover the cost through sponsorship. So we put the money in ourselves to make sure the event went ahead. Why? We wanted to make history, not money. So what does that mean with governance? I hated governance. It was a rude word, it was a swear word, it got in my way, it slowed me down. Not anymore. Right, so we definitely need governance now. We need to treat it like a good word, not a bad word. It isn't a brake, it's a steering wheel. Good governance looks like good code. Okay, so it's invisible when it works. Now then, the next slides, there's questions that you can go back and ask in any AI project that is spun up. And I'm going to cover the 4 words, so governance, caution, care, and quality. And after each slide, I've got questions that you can take back and you can ask in your workplace. So I'm not going to read the questions out, but they're there for you to take a picture of. And for each 4 of the new trends, there's questions following. So I do suggest, if you want them, take a picture. Because we are question askers. QA stands for question asker. You might think it stands for something else, but you can have that for free on a t-shirt, question asker. Go and ask the questions. It's your superpower. I've always found testers, QAs, you're great at asking questions. So let's go to the next one, caution. Again, it's not a sprint. AI is not a sprint. We need to brake carefully with AI. And that picture of the car going through the chicane, it's a fast car and goes super fast, but it's braking when it comes to a chicane. It's showing caution. And that's what we need to do with AI. And here are some questions you can ask when you go back to work Monday with zero knowledge of AI. The top one, absolutely key. Who's got the kill switch? You might think I'm being overdramatic. I don't think I am. I think it was Facebook that put a bot live, and I think the USA government contacted them and told them to turn it off because it was starting to develop its own language. I think it was Facebook, I can't quite remember. But please, go back, your question askers, ask questions. Let's look at care. So I think care in AI is the heartbeat. Without care, the AI doesn't have a conscience, right? So our care must be its compass. And I love that saying. I don't know who, I wish I could put the name next to the person that said that saying, but I do love that. And if we don't build AI with empathy, we'll end up debugging humanity. And again, here are some questions around care that you can go back and ask on Monday. And what I love about these questions is you need to have zero knowledge about AI to ask these. And the last one, quality. This is our superpower. Asking questions around quality, always asking the project around quality, demonstrating quality, testing for quality, making sure everyone's thinking of quality. This is our superpower. Here are some questions around quality that you can go back and ask on Monday. And again, I've got a horrible slide here, but I'm just going to put this up very quickly so you can take some questions, take some photos. These are more sort of AI type questions that you can ask away from those 4 key words. You can start asking questions around the DPO. So the data protection officer, have they been involved? You know, there's loads there. Have we conducted any ethical impact assessments? These are key questions. You don't need to understand AI to ask this. And there's a reference there to ISO 42001. Has anybody read that? No hands. I recommend you find your person who's driving AI in your company and you ask them for a copy of that and you read it. And I've got it on another slide in a minute. So what is the next trends? I've mentioned 4 of them, but actually that person is looking at you. You're the next trend. There's talk of people losing their jobs. I said I wouldn't mention that, but I think you are the next trend. You go back to work and you change the world by asking questions, by demonstrating quality around AI. So if we think about agentic AI and AI solutions, so there's different kinds of AI. You can use Gen AI to write test cases. There's tools that will do that for you. But when it comes to agentic and AI, actually building an AI solution for customers, then I do wonder, we've got some great skills. We've got some great mindsets. I do think there's going to have to be tweaks along the way. We're going to have to reinvent ourselves a little bit. But that's not new for us. You saw that timeline with all the trends on. You saw how the testing industry has had to evolve and change. Nothing stands still. You are all going to have to reinvent yourself slightly, but keep your core skills, your core mindsets front and center. So again, these are some more things that you can do. Now that top bit, if you're not interested in reading an ISO 42001, because it is a dry read, the 2 things about the principles, the AI principles in that top point, go and look at them. They're much easier to read. You can read them in about 3 minutes. And guess what? You can copy and paste them and put them on a Confluence page in your workplace, share them with your team and say, look, this is what we should be doing around AI principles. They're really, really good. What else can we do to avert disaster? Be brave. Challenge and speak up. This is what we do. This is in our nature to do that. Good QEs always speak up. We always challenge. Do the right thing. See AI as part of your team, not the team. So in my company, Cavu, when we meet in person, we sit around a table and we have a name place and we write AI on it and we put it on a chair, on the table and leave the chair empty. Why? Because it's part of the team. And like any other member of the team, we ask it either at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of a brainstorming session. But we always ask it. We don't take it verbatim. We might do if we like it, if we proofread and we like what it spewed out, but we might take a little bit of it, or we might take 0 of it. And push for that collaboration with AI. Okay, but more. I want to talk to you about opportunities, okay? Because I think there's loads of opportunities for everyone in this room. These are our traits. I've mentioned them before. And this is almost how they move across to AI. So you can see your core principles, your core traits are still relevant. They are still relevant and important. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And as we morph into agentic AI, I think I've already said we do need to think differently. There's going to be some new skills. But guess what? Agentic AI still needs testing. A lot of the tools like N8N has testing capabilities built into it. But it still needs a human eye. It still needs a QA, a QE to look at it. It still needs questions asking about how it works. Is it ethical? What about the impact to the people whose jobs it might be impacting in a positive or negative way? So I do think with agentic and AI solutions, we do need to morph a little bit. And I think we need to learn how to become the conductor at the front of the orchestra. Right? Not necessarily be the person playing the instrument, but be the person at the front conducting quality. More opportunities. So I hope you've read this book. It's called Radical Candor. It's really good. In that, she talks about rock stars and superstars. Right? I've put an AI twist on this. This is my version. I think, and this is really important because this is going to change the way you test and think. I think there will become an AI first engineer and then an AI aware engineer. So how does that impact you? Let's look at the squads. This could be a typical tribe in your workplace. The blue people are engineers with no AI experience. The green person is an AI champion. But over time, let's have a look. The pink people, there's one in each squad here, is an AI-aware person. And you can see over time, they become the critical mass. And you can see over time, everybody becomes AI-aware. But who are the blue people? That's new starters. I just wanted to put some reality in there. And then over time, you'll see the AI-first engineers being integrated. And then you'll see more AI-first engineers. And then the end state could be that. Now, I want you to focus on squad E and F, because all the rest are blended. I've put them deliberately. So for squad E, who is full of AI-first engineers, you would give them risky work. Right? You would give them work that might be clinical software, as an example. So, sorry, they are AI-first engineers, so they can use AI, but they want to write code first. They want that deep and tacit knowledge. So, if something is risky, give it to them. The other team, they're AI first. They want to use AI. They're chomping at the bit. So give them low risk, fast to market work. Let the AI-aware squad, which is squad A, let them take the risky work. But if you're a QE in squad E, you're going to have to think differently to a QE in squad F. Because squad F are moving at pace. They're using AI for everything. So what's your role? How are you going to add value? I do think there's going to be, this is more opportunities, I do think there's going to be a new bunch of leaders coming that are going to jump over the traditional people that are waiting to be promoted, and it's the people that have grasped AI. This is no different to what happened in 2015 when those engineers that grasped the cloud jumped above those that hadn't. So, you're after promotion? Grab AI. Okay, so these are some roles I've created. When I say I've created, I've put them on a slide. I didn't create these roles, but these are some roles that I'm aware of already exist or might exist. And as QEs, back in when Agile launched, the Scrum Masters that were first to become Scrum Masters were usually engineers or QEs. Scrum Masters back in the day were technical because they'd come from a technical background. QEs often move roles to be delivery managers, product owners, engineers. And that's fine. That's great. These are opportunities. So the prompt engineer, I think we all know that's a role now. I actually think it might have already be dead. I think it might have peaked already. But the ones I really like are the AI ethicist, so someone that looks after the ethical principles, the head of AI strategy, which I'm hoping by Friday, I might actually be head of AI in the company that I'm working at. So I'm waiting on the outcome of the interview, but I'm fingers crossed. And on this slide, I really like the AI reliability engineer. Right, look at that for a description. Preventing catastrophic failures. Wow. And I also love the security analyst as well. Chief AI officer, I think that's someone that could actually or will sit on the C-suite, on the board level of a company. And I think AI will be at the top table. I really do. And these last roles are very much my English. They're roles where I haven't thought of a corporate name for them. But I do believe there is an opportunity for an AI fire starter in companies, twisted fire starters. So I'm glad someone got the musical reference. So these are the people that put the energy behind AI. They're the ones that are they're the advocates for AI. But everywhere you have somebody lighting a fire in someone, you need someone behind them putting out the right fires. And that's why you need someone to be there yin-yang. And that's why I've got a fire person there to put out some of the fires. And the last one, the AI glue work, there's that picture again. The person that adds value for AI in a team, where it's not written on a job description, it's never spoken about, but they're the ones that keep us safe. And I think they're the really important people, and there's that picture again. Okay, so closing up, because we've got some time for questions. I'm not going to read that out. You've got eyes, you can take pictures. What I will say is please go back to work on Monday, and whether it's this talk or other talks, your company has invested in you to be here, or maybe you've paid for yourself. So you don't want to be going back and just doing the status quo. You want to be going back and changing. So think about how you're going to go back to work Monday and just write a list of 3 things from this conference that you're going to change in your company or yourself. Right, really important. And don't forget that you are the next trend. Your superpowers are going to keep humanity safe. You may think I'm being dramatic. I don't think I am. I've got enough experience of working on tech and working on trends to know, I think, what the future might hold. And you are going to be the next trend. Thank you.
Leigh, thank you so much. And you said our audience is great at asking questions, so definitely they are, and they asked several questions at the platform Slido. Thank you for that, and let's go through those questions. First one, what tools would you recommend for testing AI applications? How do you test for quality of AI output?
This is your best tool. 100%. I remember being on a panel in 2017, and it was full of CTOs and CEOs, and the question was, what's the best tool for Agile? And one of them said Jira, and I was like, really? And I actually called them out on stage, and they've never spoken to me since. But I said very simply, it's this. This is the best tool that you've got for testing AI. Right, and think about all your experiences that you've gained till now. They are the best tools. They are the best things you can pull out of your metaphorical toolbox. And to answer the next bit, how do you test for quality of AI output? The best thing we do is we pair test. Any output from AI, we pair test. It's just like a PR. You know, when devs submit code, they have a peer review, don't they? Well, the same is with the output from AI. Don't look at it by yourself. Why? Because you've got cognitive biases and you're still building knowledge up. So why not do it as pairs?
Something about regulations in European Union. Are you supporting AI regulations in the EU? How about governance, slowing down the innovation and the competitive advantages?
Yes, I am supporting AI regulations in the EU. The EU Act 2024 is a must-read. And yes, it's dry. Okay, I get it. But if you do want to really start submerging yourself in AI, I recommend, it was one of my bullet points I mentioned, the EU Act. I also mentioned those AI principles. I prefer those principles over the acts, but yes, I'm 100% having regulations. Now, that goes against my whole DNA because of all the things I mentioned about being a rebel.
Yeah, we remember about Sex Pistols.
Yeah. So it goes against my whole DNA to sort of say, yes, I want regulations, I want guardrails, but this is so important. We've never seen anything like AI before. We are in the unknown. And if you're a Star Trek fan, you'll know that the original Star Trek series in 1960s opened with the 5-year voyage into the unknown. We are definitely into the unknown. So we need some guidelines from experts, because that EU Act is experts. Why would we ignore them? We need to 100% get in line with the EU Act and call people out that are not. So service providers, I know there's plenty in the room, the unethical ones will be there chasing the euro. Will they be adhering to the EU Act? I'm not sure.
Leigh, what about that second part of the question? Can it slow down our competitive advantages in comparison, I don't know, to USA?
Yeah, 100% it will slow us down, but we need to. We have got to stay safe. And I think innovation, there's always people that want to run before they can sprint. It's human nature. I've done it for 27 years. I've always tried to run before I can sprint. If you think of babies, they try and do it. That's why they get up and fall flat on their faces, because they're trying to sprint before they can actually crawl. It's human nature. We're never going to change that. And that's why we need some acts and some fines. I do think companies need to be fined, and I don't know whether that will become a thing. But we definitely need some kind of punishment to make sure people are on the straight and narrow.
All right, and one more question, which is very popular. How are you using AI as a tester? Any other use cases that than chatting directly or using Copilot and code editor?
Yes, so we use Copilot, GitHub Copilot. So we use AI for generating, I suppose you'd call it straw people test cases, so ideas, edge cases, things to think about. So if we're building a loyalty scheme as an example, there's loads out there, there's loads of data on loyalty schemes, so why wouldn't we go and see what people have done before? So it's the edge cases, but we're also using it for performance, security, and we're also using it to generate automation code as well. Now, when I say generate code, we are showing caution, care, and quality. We take the outputs and we go through it with a fine comb. Now, you might say that's slower than generating it with your bare hands. We're actually still seeing a return on investment with speed of generating test cases for automation using AI.